Welcome back to AI for Founders. I'm your host, Ryan Estes. Today, I'm definitely not AI, I'm standing up. Today, I'm joined by Jake Johnson, co-founder of Bolto, a YC-backed startup building an AI-driven HR platform that helps companies hire, pay, and manage global teams with ease. In our conversation, Jake shares how Bolto scaled to $5 million in funding in under 2 years, why building in public works, and how AI is transforming the global workforce. We dig into the nuts and bolts of employer of record services, why hiring globally isn't just smart, it's the future, and the surprising role philosophy plays in building an AI startup. This episode is full of insights, heart, and even a little sports talk. Let's dive in. This episode is brought to you by Kitcaster, the premier podcast booking agency for high-growth founders and entrepreneurs. If you've got a great story to tell or a product to promote, Kitcaster gets you featured on podcasts your ideal audience already listens to. Our Platinum Services is built for founders who are ready for the big leagues, high visibility, high impact shows. You'll get a personal campaign manager, approval on every show before we pitch, weekly updates, expert storycraft sessions, and a stunning media kit, and short-form video clips to boost your reach. We aim to get you 1 to 3 top-tier interviews per month. This is strategic firepower. Ready to amplify your voice? Visit kitcaster.com and apply now. That's Kitcaster by Moburst.
Shining stars, computer light. Take the flight in the glow of neon bright.
Thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
I'm looking at that Seahawks jersey right now. Are you already getting fired up for the NFL like me?
You know it. We got Sam Darnold this year. We stole Cooper Kupp from a divisional rival. It's going to be great. I'm a huge baseball guy, but I do love football and anything Seattle related. So that holy trinity is basically just me. I think we can end the interview, actually. That's me.
Nice. Why Seattle?
Why Seattle? My family moved around a bunch, and of all the places I've lived, Seattle's the coolest one. It gets such a bad rap for being like the rainy city, but it won't rain a day over the summer. Every day it's going to be 75, partly cloudy, surrounded by snow-capped mountains with beautiful lakes. So if you like nature, you like the outdoors, it's the spot to be. You like sports, it's the spot to be. It's got great restaurants, good people, exciting tech. So I don't think there's a better city in America.
I love it. I love Seattle too. I mean, there's nothing like it. Pacific Northwest is incredible. Now, does this make you an OKC fan, or are you still holding a grudge from Supersonics days?
No, I got there after that, but I've been trained by all of my Seattle friends that we hate the Thunder. So go Pacers.
I know it. It's going to be an incredible series. I think it's going 7. It's going to come down to the last shot.
Is it going to be Tyrese Halliburton in Game 7 as well?
It's got to be. Although there'd be a horrible irony if he bricked it,
Yeah, he could do everything but the moment as the moment.
Right, yeah. I'm trying to figure out, somebody asked me, like, who am I going for? It's like, I'm kind of upset with OKC for knocking out the Nuggets. But what I did like about that was that it actually... It let me know that we don't need to make dramatic changes on the Nuggets. I think they're going to, but if you look at it, it's like, man, there are a couple of shots going in from being, having another championship this year. So, I appreciate them for that. But also, I really like Indy's team, man. They are some shooters over there.
I've got one Nuggets game in my life. I went to one Nuggets game, and I'll admit I was there to see LeBron, but I was going for the Nuggets, and I got to see Game 2 of the first round of the playoffs last year when the Nuggets sent LeBron home with a buzzer beater, Jamal Murray's buzzer beater against LeBron. I was there in person.
That was the one where he said, like, not only did he make the shot right on his bench, but like Anthony Davis also like went sliding into the Nuggets bench to see the game winner.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was pretty incredible,
man. Well, I appreciate it. I could go on sports all day, but I want to get into your story, your company, and your experience with AI. So first off, when I'm doing research on a person, I am just so grateful when there's somebody like you who's so active on social and everywhere. You put content out everywhere. There's just an ample of things for us to talk about. So thanks for doing that.
Yeah, by all means. I mean, you don't meet cool people if you don't put yourself out there, and it's done great things for us so far.
Now, you're also kind of a build in public guy. Before we get into kind of like the nuts and bolts, so to speak, of your company, you did like a whole thing on Twitter or X of going 0 to 1 million in revenue. What are the benefits and maybe the downsides of building in public like that?
Yeah. Okay. This is such an easy thing to talk about because it's such like a controversial thing. A lot of people think there's two main facets to it, which is the accountability you get when everybody knows what you're doing. If you don't do what you said you were going to do publicly, everybody's going to look at you as the guy who misses. And then there's a second thing, which is if I tell you my secret sauce before I build it, what's preventing you from building it, especially in the day with AI agents like Cursor, who you can give a prompt to, and it'll spit out exactly what I was saying first. And to that, I would say code has been commoditized, okay? Ideas are effectively commoditized. So I don't care if you know what I'm going to go build because my team is going to do it in a really thorough manner. We're really confident with our go-to-market strategy. So I find that the accountability and the publicity gained from building in public vastly outweighs the downside of having everybody know what's coming next.
Love it. And well, it's brave. It's like, yeah, I'll tell you exactly what I'm doing, how I'm doing it, but it's up to you. Can you execute like me? I don't think you can.
Yeah. I mean, I'll bet on our team against anybody in the world.
It reminds me, there's this famous story of the Cheyenne dog soldiers. And on particular occasions, if they were outnumbered and they were being surrounded by an enemy tribe, and so what would happen is they'd surround them with their on horseback, and then they'd start like hooping and hollering, like getting them all excited, so that you run out of like your teepee and you're like, oh no, like these guys, and so they'll run around and just taunt them before they like come in and attack them. Well, the Cheyenne were notorious for like leaving the teepee. They take a staff, bury it in the ground, tie a rope to the staff, pierce their chest or their back with bone, and then tie a rope to the staff around it. Basically saying like, I ain't going nowhere, let's go. And what happened on multiple occasions is that they took off running. Like they didn't even engage them. They're like, dude, these Cheyenne are absolutely crazy. Like, look, they're just going to hold their ground and fight. We don't want none of this smoke. But I always admired that just because like in the face of certain death that you can go out on your shield.
Yeah. I mean, our team against yours. I'll take mine.
Let's talk about your team, sir. So you are co-founder of Bolto, bolto.com. Tell me exactly
that is correct.
What your tool does.
Yeah. So at Bolto, we are bringing you an AI-driven end-to-end HR service. So whether you need to find people, employ them legally, pay them, manage them, we bring you the whole stack. That is the super short and sweet. And we do it, as you mentioned, with a pretty elite team. I'd love to, throughout this, like give shout outs to everybody on the team at some point. But yeah, that's the short of it. End-to-end HR stack driven by AI.
Amazing. Now, it looks like you're positioned mostly for kind of overseas, nearshore, offshore type hiring. Is that correct?
As far as the hiring is concerned, that is correct. That's how we got our first start. That's how we hit our first 10 customers, was helping people build in cheaper markets that will allow them to grow really quickly. Because these companies don't have, $100 million war chest to go hire the ex-SVP from Google. So they got to think on their feet. That's how we got our first customers. And then where we've really been excited about expanding is we're going after employers of record and taking on this market to allow anybody to employ anybody everywhere. After 2020, the world of international employment has just ballooned because as good as anybody, things can be done remotely, right? I don't need to be sitting across from you in a cubicle in order to know that you're going to put on the best work. So why do I have to look in my city for the best employees? So if you're going to employ somebody around the world, you need an employer of record to do so. And that's where we come in. We help you stay compliant. We help you pay your taxes. We help you pay your people all legally around the world.
So this isn't about contract work. This is actually hiring. So employer of record is what you need to hire. You don't need something equivalent for contract work, do you?
For contract work, it's a lot easier if you can generate tax forms with a contractor of record, which we do also offer. Plus, contractor management tools are going to allow you to issue bonuses, issue payments, keep track of who's where, take notes on people, save files legally. So I highly recommend a contractor of record. What I was plugging was the employer of record, but both of them are things and they both matter, and we do them both well.
Cool. And that's it. So the employer of record, go into this a little bit further. Tell me exactly what that entails and the services you provide.
Yeah. So to put it simply, let's say you've got a company here in the United States, and we'll call it company.com. Okay. UScompany.com. UScompany.com finds a stellar developer in France and a product designer in Japan, and you want to add them both to your team. UScompany.com can't hire legally in France and Japan because they don't have entities set up there. Now, you could go set up a Japanese entity and a French entity, but that's going to take months of your time, and it's going to be wildly expensive. Just paying the incorporation fees and paying to keep a corporation in those regions is going to be way more expensive than paying somebody who has a corporation there to employ them legally and lend them back to you. That's kind of the structure of what an EOR looks like. So we've set up EORs around the world. We partner in various regions to make sure that we are covered in every country you could want to employ somebody in. And so if you find the next seller candidate anywhere in the world, we can help make sure that they can legally join your team.
And what are the benefits, perhaps? We're talking about outsourcing work. And if you're talking about virtual assistants, the Philippines has been fantastic about talent for virtual assistants for a very long time.
Yeah.
You have, Eastern Europe, where like a lot of programmers, or India, of course, a lot of programmers, people are very accustomed to finding talent over there. Now Latin America really has come on board, Mexico in particular, because it's the same time zone. The level of talent is extraordinary. But what's the benefit of actually hiring folks overseas versus contracting them out?
Yeah, great question. So it really depends on what you want in terms of the makeup of your team. If you're talking contractor versus employee, everybody's got to make this decision when they're bringing on a new team member. And the risk of misclassification of an employee versus a contractor is actually a pretty sharp fiscal penalty. So basically, the reason why that is because if you're going to pay an employee, you have to set aside taxes and you have to help them file in their region, and you have to do it in a specific way. And then also employers have to pay a tax on having people in certain regions. Contractors aren't held to the same standards. So governments around the world would like to see you employ people as employees, not contractors. So there's a motivation to make sure that you are employing people as employees if that is what they are. So if they have longer term commitments to the company, large equity stakes, if they've got projects that are amorphous and they will keep going and extending for the life of the companies, that's an employee. And that's when you got to make sure that you're compliant and paying all those fees properly to all the right municipalities when you have the global teams. If you've got short-term work that needs to be done, contractors are going to be the way to go.
And I would encourage people to really take those steps depending on the countries that you're hiring or contracting out of. Because anecdotally, I've heard stories of particularly the Mexican government not being pleased with folks working as contract labor from Mexico to the States, and will actually come and kind of harass your team member for back taxes. So you do things above board.
Yes.
You hire them properly. You have an employer of record, and it's like, hey man, we're contributing to the Mexican economy. You don't need to send your goons after my staff.
It's way more than just Mexico too. Every government around the world is motivated to make sure that their citizens are employed properly. So yeah, anecdotally, you might have heard about Mexico, but there are a lot of countries who will come after you for misclassifying people, and the penalties will be sharp fiscally.
100%. So this is kind of a political hotbed issue as well. Let's get into that a little bit. Largely around, Trump was working on basically selling green cards for $5 million, which is an interesting idea. And then, of course, the controversy around H-1B visas. So both of these instances is like, okay, you have really high talent that you want to bring over here. And I'm sure that would be amazing for a lot of people. A lot of people would love to live in the United States. But what is your feeling as far as like talent overseas, looking for a ticket to the States or just like being where they are, having the same job, working remotely and living in the place that's familiar to them?
Yeah, great. I mean, great question and super in the news right now, right? I think one thing that's important that my co-founder likes to say is that talent isn't trapped to a specific location. And so the best member of your team might be extremely happy living literally on the other side of the world for you, 12 time zones away in a different hemisphere. And so while visa programs are great, because if your team is set up in person and you want to recruit somebody to come into the office every day, they shouldn't preclude you from adding the right person to your team. Because in this post-COVID world in which everything is so virtual friendly, you can add anybody you want, no matter where in the world they live. And so whether or not they have access to come to the United States versus whether or not they contribute to your team, separate issues. They can contribute to your team. It's a matter of whether or not they do it from a cubicle or from a laptop.
100%, and there's a bit of an ethical quandary here too. Some people will make that like, oh, well, if you're hiring out of Mexico and you're paying them less, is that some kind of discriminatory thing that you're taking against a person? But it's no more discriminatory that like you live in San Francisco, that if you had the same job in Denver's probably a bad, the cost of living in Denver is insane. But if let's say you were like Nevada, if you,
Chicago's a great city that has a different pay grade than New York and San Francisco, which are those are three great tech cities.
So
it's one way to look at it. Yeah, there's another great way to look at it, which is like seed stage companies are some of the greatest sources of creating jobs in the world, but seed stage companies don't have any money. And so the global economy is impacted by tech companies who create new products, who create new possibilities in the world. And if they need to be built based on people who they can afford, they're going to go to less cost constrained markets and create jobs. Now, there's nothing to be said for what they will do when they have the ability to hire anybody in the world. But creating jobs for the world, we believe, is a very net positive, no matter where you do it.
It's beautiful. And it's honestly, you get like, diversity is such kind of like a throwaway buzzword, but like, it's really important. It is. And it's amazing having people from different cultures. I've worked with, or a couple of folks that work for me, one's from Mexico, one's from South Africa, so it's like one's in the middle of summer sweating, the other one's freezing to death in winter. And it's fascinating. And so you get the benefit of their incredible talent, but also just the rich culture and traditions that they're bringing to the workplace, which I think is really important and very unique to this time and place.
People of all different backgrounds will have different lived experiences that will shape their perspective and the way that they think about problems. And you might not think that contributes to how they're going about solving a payroll problem. Like we had a currency exchange problem recently where one of our providers who helps us change currencies in South America had a new set of fees coming that the way they were written was going to fundamentally change our revenue model. And so we had 3 people from 3 different universities, 3 different states of upbringing, come into a room and sit down, and they were all thinking about the problem differently. And who knows if people would be thinking about it the same way if they had, grown up in the same area, been the same gender, same race or anything. But the fact that they are all different and came with different perspectives, it's great. It's a great argument for having a team of people who come from all around the world, whether that's Nevada, California, and Florida, or India, Japan, and Mexico. Who knows?
So going through just kind of the beat by beat features of Bolto, and the website's gorgeous, by the way. It's source talent, schedule interviews, hire easily, pay and manage. Let's talk about source talent. So is this a database that you curate, or how are you basically finding talent that people can hire from?
Yeah, great question. So we have 2 different main methods of sourcing talent. Number one is we have a database of talent that has applied to be on the Bolto platform. So for the last couple of years that we've been around, we've had people around the world taking AI-driven interviews to put themselves on the platform. Think like creating a LinkedIn account. And then so now we have that repository stored with a bunch of data about a bunch of people who are really talented. And then the second thing we do is we work with recruiters around the world in various jurisdictions because people have unique hiring needs. Almost every company I work with says, we've got a really unique hiring process. And they're all different, but everybody has something unique in their hiring process. So having a team of recruiters to back us up is really helpful.
100%. It's interesting because we're right on this weird precipice. We're talking about democratizing talent and democratizing employment opportunities for people across the world. Now, typically the folks that get hired from overseas are, one, fluid in English, and can speak really well, and the accent isn't too thick. And, two, they probably have a good understanding of American pop culture and how to fit in with an American workplace, or just any workplace. But the thing is that it's not necessarily the best talent. So we have opportunity right now.
True.
Google already has a real-time translator. We'll have a real-time video filter where you can change your appearance. So like pretty soon, like with the ability to be filters, I could look like Oprah Winfrey and sound just like her, which would be, great for my entertainment career. But I'm just wondering, like, how these kind of real-time transcriptions, like how fundamental are the attributes of our staff to our hiring process, and how is that going to change?
It's a really interesting line of thinking, because one thing that it will do is completely remove biases. And I don't mean like subconscious biases of picking one versus the other, but rather bias towards working in person versus remotely, bias towards working with people in the same time zone versus not the same time zone, versus working from Europe versus South America versus India, so that you're online at the same time versus not online at the same times, because you can curate the experience that you want for your team. And so what'll be really interesting is to see the regulation that comes into play once, like you said, you could become Oprah. I don't think it would be good for the creator economy if there were 70,000 Oprahs all running podcasts. I think it's significantly better that we have Ryan and Oprah running two different podcasts. Though it would be interesting to see the crossover, or for you to tweak, one thing or another about your experience to fit a certain audience. I think that will be really powerful. But I'm excited, as far as the tech world is concerned, to see people just be unbounded in their search for the smartest, next best contributor. Doesn't matter where they are, doesn't matter what language they speak, who's got the brain that can fire the neurons to solve your problem the fastest.
I don't know. This would be really interesting. I was just thinking of like a dial, like a potentiometer. Like when I go to a Mexican restaurant in Denver, which there are some amazing ones here, as you well know. But I drive my family crazy because I'm going to do my best Spanish. I'm going to speak Spanish, but the problem is my Spanish sounds with the exact same accent that I'm talking with now. Like my pronunciation is awful. So like if I was speaking to my Mexican friends on Zoom or whatever, and I could just be like, God, Ryan, just dial down the Colorado accent a little bit, and it made it sound better for them, then I would feel less insecure about my terrible Spanish accent.
Yeah, I think one of the really cool things that we will see soon with AI in the way that you're describing is not necessarily just employers getting the type of employee that they want in terms of what language they can speak, but people appearing more comfortable. Like that's a huge win for society. When people feel more confident in their own body with their own capabilities, we're going to get a happier population. We're going to get a population who's excited to show up to work, who's creating cooler stuff. It's going to be a domino effect that's going to have a lot of implications on the world when people get to show up the way that they want to show up, no matter what that means.
So cool. It's coming so soon. Okay. So I've got my startup. I'm like, you know what? I'm all in. I'm going Bolto. They're my employer of record. They have a place for me to source talent all over the globe if I so choose. There's recruiters out there that are like pre-screening, pre-qualifying. Not only that, but like applicants are pouring in, bringing their resumes to Bolto so that they can be easily searched and accessed when it's time for a job. Are there particular job titles that are best, or that Bolto really specializes in, whether that's programming, whether that's BDRs, sales? What's a role that I would go to hire?
Great question. We have historically lived in the tech ecosystem. So whether that's product designers, product managers, software engineers, quality assurance engineers, full stack, front and back end, We live on the tech side of things. That being said, within the last 3 quarters, we've expanded beyond that. We are placing salespeople, community managers, growth managers, marketing team members. So if you have a team need and you are struggling to find it, come give us a shot. We'll help you out.
Okay, pretty much anyone. Now, once we've qualified some, we can schedule interviews through the platform. You can hire, and then actually you're going to pay and manage them. So how does that work? So the salary of the person I hire, you invoice me, I pay you, you handle the taxes and payroll, benefits, the whole shebang to them. Is that kind of how it works?
Yep, in local currencies around the world. So all you have to do is worry about one invoice every pay period, whatever you set that to be, and we'll handle the rest no matter how logistically complicated it must be.
Amazing. So cool. So this company has grown really fast, really quickly. From what I saw, you guys were founded in 2023, rebranded from Crew,
Yes.
and have raised about 5 million. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, those numbers are accurate.
Amazing.
Yeah.
How did you pick up this kind of
Yeah.
traction and momentum coming into this company in 2 years?
Yeah. I think I would be remiss to not mention that we're a Y Combinator backed
Yeah.
company. So my co-founders and I, the way we met was pretty cool. I was college roommates with one of them, and then his middle school best friend is the other co-founder. And so, yeah, we were all working in different jobs. I was at Microsoft working in engineering. One of my co-founders was an AI ML developer at Palantir, and then our mutual friend was working on Wall Street in New York, actually 30 Rock. If he wanted to start a company, so he hit us up and he was like, "Hey, let's apply to Y Combinator." And I was like, "That's ridiculous. Nobody gets into YC. Not working." And then he was like, "Come on, let's do it." And so I was like, "Okay." So we put together an application, we threw up a prayer, and we got in. And so then all of a sudden it was like, okay, now we got to start a company. And so we started a company. The first time I actually ever saw my other co-founder in person was in the FFO airport when we moved in together, and we called an Uber to our new apartment. But we got started with the greatest community ever, the Y Combinator community. We were with all other people starting, and we just made our entire lives starting a company. And so when we immersed ourselves in that, we took a couple attempts in YC at starting different things. We worked in the fintech sphere for a little bit. We worked in cybersecurity for a little bit. And then when we realized human resources was something that our team was well equipped to go build, we just ingrained ourselves in that. And we took reps and reps and reps, and we talked to as many people as possible. And problem spaces became clear, and revenue opportunities became clearer once problem spaces became clear. And we capitalized and worked our asses off, and here we are.
It's amazing. Now, YC isn't necessarily a slam dunk. I mean, I can see why you were selected for the cohort, because all of you guys are already successful and have an amazing pedigree. But you had to take a significant risk, all three of you, to kind of put your careers on hold and be like, no, we're going to go all in on this thing and see what happens. Like, what inspired that kind of like bravery?
You should have heard the phone call I gave my mom when I was like, "Hey, Mom, so I'm quitting my great job at Microsoft that employs me down the road from my family." They were living in Seattle at the time. And I'm going to move to San Francisco to start a company. Okay. What's the company? We don't know yet. We're going to figure that part out. So that, as you can imagine, was like it was a leap of faith. But the fact that YC gives you an initial set of funding, and I believe in my two co-founders. I had known of one of them for 9 years, and I'd known the other for 9 years. I was ready to take a shot. If I was ever going to do it, that was the group of people I was going to be with. And so once I realized the people were going to be in the right place, that's the most valuable piece of the equation. I was ready to go to war with these
What's
guys.
the task distribution from the three of you? How's that changed from when you were in YC?
Oh, man. Well, when you're in YC, all three of you are doing the same job, which is problem discovery and ideation and getting to know your customers. Once you know your customers and you know what you need to go build, then it becomes who's going to build it, who's going to design it, who's going to sell, who's going to talk to customers, who's going to be hiring. And so there's a bunch of different delineations of work that need to happen. And so I stood beautifully in the middle of engineering and sales at my last job. I was a product manager in Azure And then our CEO worked in banking. He had never been a computer scientist. And our CTO, Millen, is an AI ML developer from Palantir. Dude's technical. He speaks in bit code. So, in order to have somebody who sits between the two of them and kind of, love the FaceTime effects there.
Perfect timing.
Our team's awesome. Yeah. So in order to have somebody who sits between the two team members or between the two sides of the company to illustrate, it made it so clear that tactical work comes up, it's going to Millen. Non-tactical work comes up, it's going to Mernal. Something that bridges the gap, it's going to me. And so having 3 specialists in 3 very different lines of work made it very easy to see who's going to do what.
Yeah. That's cool, man. And again, I'm just like really taken aback of how fast. So you go through YC. YC usually finds, what is it, 100,000, something like that? And then you're able to raise 5. Was that based on traction you had early on in sales, or was it just truly the vision and the team?
Both. And so we actually didn't finish the fundraise during YC. We raised enough capital to go out, build our initial version, start selling it, then we finished the fundraise. Which I would actually, if you're raising a seed round right now and you're a founder, I would not shy away from the idea of a bifurcated fundraise. Really consider not doing it all at once. If you can do it all at once, I mean, by all means, go sign the mega check if you can get it. But we raised enough money to go build enough traction to prove to people, hey, not only do we have the vision in the team, but we also have enough initial traction to go out and do the thing. And so that's how we were able to pull off the 1-2 punch to create this seed round of $5 million.
Cool. And when you're incorporating AI into the platform, what LLMs, I'm sure, are part of it as far as like generative, like text and things like that. How else is AI
course.
incorporated into the platform?
Yeah, so there's a couple different places we use it. One of the primary places that if you experience it by creating an application on Bolto, you'll be like, wow, that was very AI forward, is when you apply and you get your interview, you're going to show up and it's going to look like this, what you and I are looking at right now, 2 people on the screen, except one of them's going to be a literal AI person who's reading your resume and asking you questions about it, coming up with different problems for you to solve based on your experience. So that AI forward recruiting process from the applicant side is very unique. And then on the recruiter side of things, when people ask us, hey, I have a job description here, I can't fill it. The first thing we're doing is we're plugging it into our AI driven search across our database of tens of thousands of candidates to see if we have any matches like that, who we should immediately go ask to take a new interview based on this match. So there's the search as well as the interview. And then as far as the payroll tool is concerned, payroll's complicated, man. People are trying to understand, like, when's the last time you looked at your W-2 and you're like, I know exactly what I'm looking at here? Probably never.
Yeah.
Right? And so, our idea is, can we make payroll and HR simple enough that people can understand it? And the way to do that is through agents.
Yeah. A couple of questions if I'm looking at my W-2. So, you have a staff. One of the wild things for founders is everything that it comes along with payroll, which is like health insurance. Now you're the healthcare provider for your team, which is an unexpected kick in the pants. And, of course, you want to provide, 401k, retirement plans. You want to be competitive, so you have different benefits and things like that.
Yep.
How is that globally? Is there a similar compulsion, I suppose, that like for health insurance and benefits, things like that?
Yeah, it's wildly different country to country. Most countries have a public healthcare system, so they won't care about it in their EORs. Some countries have privatized healthcare, and it's largely the same as you would experience in the United States. But as far as retirement savings and matching programs go, that's all country to country dependent. A lot of that is US based. And I don't know if you've ever plugged PEO insurance options on your platform. It's one of the things that we're getting into. But PEO insurance basically allows founders, if you're worried about your benefits package, like you work at a company who gives you great healthcare, maybe you have a family and you're like, I can't go take the leap because I get such a great insurance package. PEO insurance allows you to partner with other small companies to create the illusion of a big company to get the insurance rates of a Microsoft and Amazon, Facebook. Yeah. Right? That's one of the really, really valuable tools that all founders need.
Yeah, 100%. You can do that with you guys. That's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's huge. You know, and again, like my staff, I want the best for them. I want to pay them as much as I can and get them all the benefits you possibly can. But man, the brass tacks, as you look at it, and that adds 40% between payroll insurance, health insurance, like all these benefits. It's extremely expensive. You know, it's extremely expensive.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm curious about your business model. And I love the UI on your page because you can go straight to start looking at candidates. Like I have somebody to hire. I want to look at candidates first. Boom, you're right there. You want to demo the platform, you can book that too. But what's the business model for Bolto? How do you guys get paid?
How do we get paid? So we've got a couple different products at this point, right? There's the HR suite of actual employers of record, payroll business. There's also the hiring business. So in the hiring business, we don't get paid unless we do a good job, right? So if you ask us to go find somebody, we don't find anybody, you don't pay a thing. As soon as we build your team, you start employing them, that's what you get paid for a headhunting. As far as EOR and payroll model is based, it's on a per seat basis, right? So let's say you want to hire 7 people in the Netherlands. There's a per head cost for you to use our EOR in the Netherlands. And then on the US payroll, it's going to be a base fee plus a per head cost. That's incremental on top of whatever you're paying for payroll. That way we can cover any foreign exchange fees, any insurance that we have to pay for, et cetera, as well as take a margin to pay our employees.
So you have the option. Now, as an employer, like how many people overseas should I, when's the magic number that I should get an EOR? If it's like 1 or 2, is it like, we'll let it ride? Or if it's like, is it more than 10?
So it's actually reverse of that. You should have an EOR the moment you have one person overseas that you're employing. It's once you get up to, if you've got 100 people in the same city, you should probably create your own entity, right? Unless you have some sort of system working where you've worked on a negotiated enterprise rate with an EOR that's local, and you've got some sort of system where they have legal resources that you don't have and you want to take advantage of that. It's when you're small, that's when you need an EOR. When you expand in a certain area, that's when you create an entity. And unfortunately, I wish there was a magic number. There's no magic number.
So break down the fees a little bit. You guys found me a salesperson from Mexico. I'm like, yes, it's going to be $50,000 a year. What am I paying you for the fee, or what comes out of that 50,000, and what's the additional fee for the employer of record?
Yeah, great question. So if you're going to use the employer of record side of things, it's just going to be $500 a month in perpetuity for you to have the ability to not have a corporation in Mexico, but stay legally compliant and do all of your payroll. If you're going to be in the US, it depends, company, hire to hire. But it's around 35 a head plus an additional fee. And then as far as recruiting goes, if you find a talent on our platform and you're like, man, this guy's awesome, I want to take him elsewhere though, that's going to be a typical headhunting recruiting fee of, a market standard of 30%. And so if you find anybody on our platform though, fees are already baked in. So if you see a number and you're like, wow, this is a number that's great for our team, I'm worried about fees though. No fees on top.
So then I'm paying you for payroll for that pay period. You're pulling from that, or is the fee associated in the front side? Is that 30% in the front?
30% would be if we don't end up putting somebody on an employer record for you.
Okay.
And so if you take somebody and go elsewhere with it, that's how it would be. But you do pay us. We take fees. We distribute the money in local currency to your people around the world.
Yeah, I mean, I've shopped this whole area a lot, and that's like right on point. It's not the cheapest, but obviously you guys are not the cheapest. So it's very competitive in the pricing.
I mean, you get what you pay for. Yeah, we believe that it is quite competitive. We also believe that our team provides a service that's worth paying for.
Yeah, and ultimately, like if you're working with staff, boy, especially a new company or startup, like one wrong hire can literally derail your company for years.
Yes. One wrong hire, especially a full-time hire here in the United States, there are employee protections about when you can fire people. And, if somebody's underperforming, you can't just day of necessarily say, get out. And you also won't know if somebody's underperforming for a while. And so if you're a seed stage company, you've got a year of runway and somebody's going to eat of your runway, and you're not going to get the right thing out of them, that's a death sentence.
Dude, I could tell you some horror stories about hiring the wrong people early, but I don't want to talk too much about it, put it in the ether. That person will spawn in somewhere. So,
Hey, you know, and people aren't always the right fit for a role. That doesn't mean that there isn't a fit for them out there.
Yeah.
Right. So if somebody was the bad fit at a job, doesn't mean that they're a bad employee necessarily across the board. Just means that that wasn't the right fit.
And you know, congratulations. The EOR stuff is like so important. You really want to do that. You know, the extra $500 a month, so you just don't have to worry about the IRS or some other country's IRS equivalent knocking on your door with annoying paperwork. Like, just pay it and leave it alone. You know?
Yeah. And if you're thinking about doing it yourself and starting a corporation, in a various country, like by all means look at it. It's going to be more than $500 a month. It's going to be a lot more than that. So if you're going to go spin up a team of 30, go look at it. If he's got a team of 1 to 5, give me a call.
Got it. Okay. Are you ready for the lightning round?
Bring it on.
Okay. Let's say you sold Bolto for $1 billion tomorrow. What's your next project that you work on?
Think about that. You know, one of the things that I am fascinated by, so money is no longer an issue, and I get to think for as many years as it takes to solve a problem. So now we're talking about, what problem do I want to solve? I find our public rail system to be so obnoxiously out of touch, right? There's a rail that's being extended from Bellevue to Issaquah in Seattle, and that is like 5 miles long. And they announced the project a couple months ago, and they said, and it's scheduled to open in 2044. It's a 4-mile long rail, an extension of a track that already exists, and they've already budgeted 19 years for it. So that, and it's not even high-speed rail. And so if I could get into anything, I think it might be high-speed rail, and just democratize it. Make it so that you could go from Denver to San Francisco on a 3-hour train ride.
Yeah. You know, I mean, wouldn't that more like be politics though? I mean, this one of the things that China is so impressive is they build that thing in a week with robots, and robots would do it, you know? Oh,
it's awesome. Yeah. What they're accomplishing in the railway space is beyond innovation. It's unthinkable.
It's unbelievable. Like how far advanced they are. You know, I understand that we have certain bureaucracy that slows things down, and some of those are in our best interest. For me, you know, I am concerned about the archaeological remnants of my forefathers, and you want to be careful that if you come across a site, you're going to stop. But at what point are you like, look, man,
of course,
we might just have to plow through it to get this thing done? I mean, China is not worried about it. You know what I mean?
Where I am more stuck is less on the things that pop up where we're protecting a historical site, because that obviously is very important. What bothers me is when the area is already paved, the whole thing has been spec'd out, and you still have 17 years left on the project. That just doesn't sit right with me. And so maybe not politics. I wouldn't want to build public rail necessarily, but building rail that's accessible for the public by building the private sector would be pretty cool.
Totally agree. Awesome. If you were entering college today, looking ahead at the future, what would you study?
Philosophy. With a more well-rounded education, everybody's got to know how computers work. Even if it's never been more important to know how computers are driven, even though GPT can do all of your homework for you. Like, you got to know how it's happening. And so philosophy will allow you to, create a moral compass of right and wrong that will guide you for the rest of your life through a market that has an ever-changing set of skills that we can't possibly predict.
You think philosophy is a good place for ethics?
Eventually.
I don't know. Is there a particular segment of philosophy that you think would be important? Are we talking about the classics here? The Greeks?
To be fair, no, I'm not going to narrow it down, because I think the value of college is pretty much boiled down to learning how to critically think. If you come away from college with a great equation for critical thinking, you've done college well. And I think philosophy, you got to formulate an argument. Whether you're going with classics, whether you're going with contemporary moral issues, you're going to learn how to formulate an argument for yourself to be able to apply towards whether that's mathematics, whether that's history, whether that's any of the social studies. You're going to be set with an equation and a set of skills that you can apply toward many other things.
I would totally agree with that. I think philosophy gave me the ability to reason and to structure arguments that are fundamentally sound mathematically. You know, not that life's all about reasoning, but it's good to know when you're not reasoning and have reason for it.
Yeah. That's pretty helpful.
Nice. Besides Bolto, what's your favorite AI tools right now?
I mean, Cursor. Is there any other answer right now? Those guys are killing it. Our developers, our team of 2 primary senior developers, is outputting more than my 300-person team did at Microsoft every week.
Really?
No, that's equally a shot at big tech as it is at innovation. Yeah. The feature that I designed when I was first year out of college in 2021 shipped last week at Microsoft. It's 2025. We built an entire company in the last year and a half.
I mean, that is the fun thing about startups, right? Is there is no red tape. You just like warm life through butter.
No. It's
great.
There's postmortems, a lot more postmortems than there are in big tech. Build fast, break things, man.
Cool. Is there anything disturbing to you about AI? Anything scary? Any particular category of job that you think is going to be dismantled by the coming robot gods?
I actually had the opportunity to attend a dinner with Sam Altman recently, and the discussion was quite funny. Because if you look at what the jobs are that we have right now, almost none of them were a thing in 1750. Like, basically none of them. And yet, there would be no reason for all of the people in 1750 to be afraid about their job security because everybody's always had the opportunity to work. Now, it's never been less clear about what the next chapter is, this close to the next chapter. However, there was a funny little tidbit that was like, if we terraform another planet, somebody's going to have to move the manatees there. And so we're going to have professional manatee movers to outer space. Somebody's going to do that job, and it's going to be important in that society. So I'm not worried for people about having something to do. What they do, I have no idea. I think all industries are going to see mass change.
God, I would love to be a space manatee mover. I was born for that.
Right? Those guys have got it. Without gravity, the manatees are light. You can just throw them around like a soccer throw-in.
A little spin. It was like, amazing. If you could live in any time, except for the future, not today, what era would you live in?
I think the creation of the internet, I wasn't around for it. I think that would be a pretty cool one to live in.
So that'd be what, early 90s?
I'm fascinated by flight.
Ooh.
Yeah, I was born in the late 90s. So to be in my prime of my career, so to be born in maybe the early 60s, late 50s would be pretty cool. But also, I'm going to say that the innovation of flight would have been really cool to work on. So being born in the late 1800s would have been pretty cool.
Last question. What's your feeling about Russell Wilson?
Great one to end on. I love him. I grew up in North Carolina while he was the quarterback of NC State. My family moved to Seattle, and I got to watch him at, pretty early in his career. And then my parents moved to Denver this same month he moved to Denver. So I feel like Russell and he doesn't know it, but we're friends. And so I've been a big fan of his for a very long time, and nothing but the best for him. And I hope he has another late surge of success in his career.
Jake, where can people connect with you online?
Yeah, follow me on LinkedIn. Jake Johnson's a little bit of a common name, but Jake Johnson Bolto will yield me. That's the one to follow. And then on Twitter, it's Jake's Main Crew, at Jake's Main Crew. You'll be part of my main crew if you're with me on Twitter.
Amazing. Jake, I really appreciate the time. This has been awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so
Jake
much, Ryan.
Johnson, let's ride. This episode is brought to you by MoBurst, the AI-first growth engine trusted by iconic startups like Calm, Robinhood, Reddit, Uber, and Google. MoBurst is a digital full-service mobile-first marketing agency that helps companies to scale and become category leaders. Whether you're finding product market fit or ready to accelerate growth, MoBurst delivers creative, data-driven solutions that help with scale and efficiency and impact. At MoBurst, we're not just guessing what works, we're predicting it. As an AI-first agency, MoBurst uses cutting-edge tools to analyze user behavior, adapt creative in real time, and uncover hidden growth opportunities. The result, marketing that's faster, smarter, and built to convert. From early-stage startups to global brands, we've helped hundreds of companies overcome complex challenges, unlock new audiences, and optimize every metric that matters. At MoBurst, we believe that creative thinking, advanced technology, and data are the core drivers of success at scale. If you're serious about scaling your business with precision and purpose, it's time to talk to MoBurst. Visit moburst.com and let's build something category-defining together.